Watch comprehensive coverage of Davos 2024 on WION World is One.
Vielleicht nur als 5%.
Hello and welcome, I'm Ananya Datta and you're watching Race to Power, a special show where we talk about everything elections. Here's what we have lined up for you. Now there is a reason why a temple in India is at the heart of BJP's re-election bid. It's because temple politics works in the country of 1.1 billion Hindus. Now it seems like the opposition is catching up. The Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, TMC and even the BJD, they're all asking for blessings as well as votes. Now it is an election year in the United Kingdom and one controversial policy could make or break Rishi Sunak. But unfortunately he's facing rebellion from his own party. Now, our top story today is from India, where elections are now just months away. The excitement around Ayodhya Ram Temple's consecration on January 22nd is forcing other political parties in India to play catch-up. Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik rolled out his own temple gambit earlier today. Chief Minister Patnaik attended the inauguration ceremony of the heritage corridor around the famous Jagannath Temple in India's eastern town of Puri. The guest list for the mega ceremony included religious heads of around 1,000 temples across the country. Priests of the famous Pashupatinath temple in Nepal have also received an invite. Naveen Patnaik leads the state party Biju Janata Dal. The corridor was the BJD government's flagship project launched 5 years ago. The project was promoted with much fanfare as the state goes to polls along with national elections in April this year. The corridor inauguration is being seen as the biggest ace up the BJD's sleeve. The Bharatiya Janata Party is BJD's principal opposition in the state. Talking about other states and political parties, the Congress party, which was in power in the state of Chhattisgarh, announced a flagship Ram Tourism Circuit project in November of 2019. The project entails development of sites where deity Ram is believed to have spent time during his 14-year exile. The first phase of the multi-million-dollar project is nearing completion now. Incidentally, the Kamal Nath-led Congress government in Madhya Pradesh had also planned a similar Ram circuit in the state before it was toppled in the year 2020. And speaking of the opposition parties in India, many opposition leaders who were invited for the Ram Temple consecration have decided not to attend the ceremony on January 22nd. Amid criticism from the BJP over the move, some of the opposition leaders have announced their own plans for the day. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, who is on his Bharat Jodo Nyaya Yatra campaign march, is said to be visiting a Shiva temple near Guwahati in India's northeastern state of Assam. The top leadership of the Congress party is not attending the Ayodhya Ram Temple consecration on January 22nd, which they have branded as a BJP RSS event. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee said that she will be in Kolkata on January 22nd. She will be visiting a temple of Goddess Kali to offer prayers. Mamata will then lead a mega all-religion rally in the city. The all-faith rally is being held by the Trinamool Congress Party on January 22nd itself. The rally will cover different shrines across faiths before culminating a minority-dominated area of the city. Over to Delhi, Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has not yet disclosed Aam Aadmi Party's stance on the Ram Temple consecration as of now, but the party is set to hold recitals of Sundarkand, which is part of a version of the epic Ramayana in all the assembly constituencies in Delhi. The recitals began on Tuesday, and Tuesday's events was attended by Chief Minister Kejriwal in Rohini. Over to Pakistan now, where the Election Commission has warned that the polls scheduled for February 8th May have to be delayed if requests keep coming for changing the election symbols already allocated to candidates. The ECP in a statement pointed out that election symbols were being changed through various ways here. The reference could be to various courts which are hearing cases on electoral symbols. The directive came just a day after the Pakistan People's Party raised serious concerns. PPP has been denied the use of the party election symbol of arrow to its ticket holders in Punjab. Party members have now been put in the category of independent candidates. The election body has repeatedly issued instructions to relevant officials. Officers are ordered to not change election symbols once the printing of ballots begin. Now, this is because the ECP has already ordered the printing of ballot papers to the 3 printing corporations. And in the run-up to the polls, WION's Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik spoke to the country's caretaker Minister of Information and Broadcasting. Listen in to what the leader had to say about speculation surrounding this high-octane election.
Parties have raised accusations that the next Prime Minister of Pakistan has been chosen even before the election date was announced. Your thoughts on this thing that has been going around?
That's just plain politics. In Pakistan, the political culture is that if you project yourself as a victim, as oppressed, you get sympathies. So pretty much every political party has been playing the role of victim. If you ask PTI, they will say we are not getting level playing field, especially in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. If you ask People's Party, they will say we are not getting level playing field in Punjab. If you ask PMLN, they will say we are not getting level playing field in Sindh. If you ask Maulana Fazl Rahman of JUI, they will say we are not getting level playing field in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan because of the security situation. So everybody is a victim. Now, neither you nor I are contesting elections. So we have no vested interest in denying any political party any level playing field. We are there to provide every kind of support to Election Commission of Pakistan, who is responsible for holding free and fair elections. And we are committed providing every support to Election Commission of Pakistan and creating conducive environment. As Information Minister, I can assure you that the state media, especially Pakistan Television and Radio Pakistan and APP, are providing due coverage to all political actors and all political parties of Pakistan, and we have no favorites in this race.
In several instances, we have seen reports highlighting censorship on Imran Khan and the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. There have been at least 2 instances of internet and social media outages on the day PTI was doing its virtual rallies. Your take on Imran Khan's censorship that's ongoing in the country?
Well, the former Prime Minister and former Chairman of PTI, has been convicted. His conviction has not been set aside. He remains convicted, and he is charged in serious crimes, criminal offenses, embezzlement, forgery, as well as serious crimes like sedition. No country allows full media access to convicts and people undergoing serious charges like him. Besides him and a group of people, PTI leaders are available on media, including state media like Pakistan Television. So I do not take those charges as truthful statements.
Now, it is nothing less than a Tory rebellion in the United Kingdom. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is facing a series of wars ahead of the general elections due later this year. But his biggest source of distress is a revolt by senior MPs of his own party, the Conservative Party. The revolt is over Sunak's controversial and expensive policy that stalled plans to send asylum seekers on a one-way trip to Rwanda. With a vote in Parliament expected to shape the policy's future in a few hours, two Conservative deputy chairmen and ministerial aides of the Conservative Party have joined calls to toughen up the government's proposed law. They said that they were ready to defy Sunak and join the rebellion by 60 Tory members of the Parliament. Sunak is refusing to cede ground in a battle that has now prompted two of his vocal supporters to resign. He believes the legislation is crucial in turning around his party's popularity before the elections. And unless the legislation is changed, some Conservatives are threatening to vote against the bill if it is not strengthened. They will now have to decide whether to back down or join forces with opposition parties to try to defeat the government at the law's final stage in the House of Commons.
The vote in France.
Advocate for improving mental health support for young people, something that
The British Parliament has debated Prime Minister Sunak's Rwanda bill and will come to a decision amid deep divisions on the issue. Sunak hopes the new legislation will boost his 2024 bid and help him fulfill his Stop the Boats pledge. But why is this bill so significant for Sunak, the Conservative Party and also voters? Let's break it down on WION's Power Explainer. Firstly, why is immigration such a key issue in Britain? Taking back control of borders and ending the free movement of people was a major factor that led Britain to leave the European Union. And polls show it remains one of the most important issues for voters. Just last year, more than 29,000 people, unauthorized migrants, entered the country from across the English Channel. Now, the next question is, what is Britain's Rwanda plan? The Rwanda scheme was first proposed in April of 2022 by then Prime Minister Boris Johnson. It was designed to deter migrants from coming to Britain illegally. Under the plan, anyone who arrived in Britain illegally after January 1st, 2022 would be sent to Rwanda. But the plan was met with challenges before the first flight could take off. The first deportation flight was blocked by European judges in June of 2022. The UK Supreme Court then unanimously upheld a ruling that the scheme was unlawful because migrants were at risk of being sent back to their homelands or to other countries where they would be at risk of mistreatment. Despite no deportations taking place, Britain has already paid Rwanda millions of pounds, and while Britain hopes to send thousands of migrants, at the moment Rwanda only has the capacity to take a few hundred. Now, why is the Rwanda policy so important to Sunak? After becoming Prime Minister in October last year, Sunak made Stop the Boats one of his top 5 priorities. Britain is currently spending more than £3 billion a year on processing asylum applications. Further, the cost of housing migrants runs at about £8 million a day. To address these issues and the problems faced by the Rwanda plan, Sunak came up with his Rwanda bill, the new emergency bill, and it would affirm that Rwanda is a safe country for refugees. If passed, Sunak says flights to Rwanda will begin early this year. The government has said that it might not be compatible with the European Convention on Human Rights. It disapplies some sections of Britain's Human Rights Act and allows ministers to ignore rulings from the European Court of Human Rights. Now, this has angered Sunak's conservative critics, who have warned that they will vote down the bill. They say that they would not support a bill which put Britain in breach of international law. Even if Sunak gets the bill through the House of Commons, the legislation could still be held up by the House of Lords. Now, that would prevent it from becoming a law before next year's election. And remember, the Labour Party, which is ahead in opinion polls, has pledged to scrap the policy if it wins the election.
I send my best wishes to the honourable member and his father also, and all those suffering in this way.
Now, with his popularity on decline, French President Emmanuel Macron is trying to revive his second mandate. After a year of contested reforms, Macron has now announced a wide array of measures. Last year's reforms have hit Macron's ratings and his chances in the European Parliament elections in June. Now, will these announcements help change the tide for Macron? We will try to decode that.
French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday promised to breathe new life into his second term, vowing to, quote, break taboos with a raft of measures despite his unpopularity and contested reforms. That came in a rare and lengthy news conference where Macron focused on everyday worries, schools, healthcare, and the cost of living. Without giving details, Macron also talked about tax cuts for the middle class.
Deep down, there's a blind spot in France, which means many of our compatriots earn too much to get help, but not enough to live well. It's the popular France, the middle-class France, the France that says when you offer something, it's never for me.
It seemed to be a nod to discontent over surging living costs in France that have seriously hit his popularity, as well as his prospects in the European Commission elections in June. His party badly trails behind Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally. In his Tuesday presser, Macron blasted them as the party of, quote, easy anger. Though the president is constrained by a lack of a majority in parliament, he said he would ask his government to launch more liberal reforms to boost the economy.
Produce more, innovate more, go faster. This and independence via work and production can be done because more French people will be in the workforce.
Macron also announced several measures for parents and children, including regulating their screen time without specifying how it would be done, and that parental leave would be shorter than it is now, but better paid. His appointment last week of 34-year-old Gabriel Attal as France's youngest ever prime minister had signaled the president's desire to move forward and also win back disgruntled voters, tempted by Le Pen's far-right party.
Now, Russia is set to vote in presidential elections on March 17th. As the polls come close, central region of Bashkortostan saw a rare protest. Russian police used tear gas to disperse protesters that erupted after a court sentenced a local activist to 4 years in prison. Fail Alisnov, who campaigns against gold mining in the Urals region and advocates for the protection of the large ethnic Bashkir population's language, was sentenced for inciting hatred. Dozens of people detained and injured in the protests and clashes that followed. While President Putin is expected to win without much of a contest, his administration is nonetheless ticking all the procedural boxes ahead of the polls. Residents of the Russian-held city of Donetsk in eastern Ukraine lined up to register their support for Putin, which is part of the poll process. Putin needs to gather 300,000 signatures by January 31st in support of his candidacy. Russia formally annexed Donetsk and 3 other Ukrainian regions in September of 2022. The move was condemned as illegal by Ukraine and many other countries at the United Nations. Conducting the March election in these areas is important for Moscow as a means of demonstrating that it has integrated them as new territories. Ukraine says that the exercise is illegitimate and also void. In a related development, Russia says that it will be opening polling stations at 3 diplomatic missions in the US. The announcement came as Moscow said that it has not yet decided if voting will take place in what it calls unfriendly European countries.
Everything can be rigged. I suppose, just like in the United States, previous elections were falsified through postal voting. Postal voting, you know how it was. They bought ballots for $10, filled them out and threw them into mailboxes without any supervision from observers. And that's it.
In March 17th vote in Russia, it is expected to extend President Vladimir Putin's long rule until at least 2030. Shifting focus to Serbia now, where protests against an alleged electoral fraud has continued for weeks. Thousands of opposition supporters rallied in capital of Belgrade. And they are demanding the annulment of last month's elections, which were described by international observers as unfair. In an address to the crowd, Marinika Tepic, the leader of the centre-right Alliance Serbia Against Violence, said that the opposition remains determined to contest the election result. Tepic, whose alliance came second in the vote last month, went on a 2-week hunger strike to protest the outcome of the vote.
Even today, not only Europe, but the whole planet knows that we have caught the thieves red-handed. This one across the street who is unable to come out in front of anyone and instead peeps through the curtain. That brave guy who just looks through the curtain is unable to confront his own people.
The populist ruling Serbian Progressive Party won 46.72% of the votes in the snap parliamentary and local elections. But an international monitoring mission said that the SNS gained an unfair advantage through media bias, the improper influence of President Alexander Vučić, and voting irregularities such as vote buying. Vučić and his allies said that the elections were fair.
I expect us to continue where we left off, to bring the electoral fraud and apparent theft to light. We hope that Europe will help us with this, and of course, we are here today to mark 6 years since the murder of Oliver Ivanovic.
The rally was also staged to mark the 6th anniversary of the killing of Oliver Ivanovic, a moderate Kosovo Serb politician. And with that, we are wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching.
Ayodhya comes alive as it counts down to the grand consecration ceremony. Prime Minister Modi to lead the inauguration of the Ram Temple.